What if the strongest thing you could do is stop trying to look strong? We live in a world that rewards performance, certainty, and having all the answers. But what happens when life puts you on a mountain, literal or metaphorical, and strips away every illusion of control? Today's guest, Jeff Harmon, discovered that resilience isn't about pushing through at all costs. It's about vulnerability, trust, community, and having the courage to lead from your heart when your ego wants to take over. His journey, from a life altering diagnosis to leading a wheelchair assisted climb of Mount Kilimanjaro, will challenge what you think you know about strength, leadership, and what it really means to become who you're meant to be. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be expanded versions of ourselves and have a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today, I'm speaking with Jeff Harmon. Jeff is an executive leadership coach, speaker, and founder of My Impossible, a nonprofit helping individuals with disabilities pursue bold, life-changing challenges through community and support. With over 15 years of coaching experience, Jeff partners with leaders, primarily in the life sciences, to build cultures rooted in trust, accountability, and clarity under pressure. Jeff's work is shaped by his own journey with a rare neurological condition that led him to take on one of the most ambitious challenges, leading a team to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in a wheelchair. That experience now fuels his speaking, where he helps leaders understand a powerful truth. Pressure doesn't create leadership, it reveals it. Through compelling storytelling and practical insight, Jeff equips audiences to recognize their leadership reflexes under pressure and lead with greater awareness, intention, and impact. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Glad to be here.
So we're going to talk about your transformational journeys that you've been on, that you take people on. And I was wondering about starting with how you would describe your life pre-diagnosis to, we'll get to now, but what things were like for you then?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to say this word, and I don't mean it in a negative, but I was living a very ordinary life. And ordinary can be great. It can be extraordinary, and there certainly were those moments. But, just life in a snapshot, 4 years at college, job out of college, married at 30 years old, two kids, a job, career, some dreams, some coming true, some not. And so life was pretty ordinary. And there's, again, I qualify the word because I can imagine some people will hear that and be, bristle a little bit, especially your audience. But it was a pretty ordinary, typical life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate your sensitivity to that word. And as I think about it, what we talk about a lot is finding one's own authentic self. And so that word means different things to different people, right? And as you said, like someone I have a wonderfully ordinary life, and someone else would say, I have an ordinary life, as I think you are saying, which is, and I want more. And there's more. I think there's more for me. And what I'm hearing from you is, looking back, actually, so here's the question. Did you think it was as ordinary as you see it now back then?
I do. But I want to respond to something that you just said as you were kind of classifying the two types of ordinary is, and it really resonated as I heard you say it, I absolutely recognize the desire in me throughout my childhood, throughout my early adulthood, throughout, or, being a full blown adult. I absolutely recognize the desire for more.
Mm.
And I see the evidence of it at different points in my life. And I think it was still that desire for more that then found its fulfillment post diagnosis, and then in the events that unfolded after that. So absolutely, I recognize today the hunger, the desire for more, often held back by my own fears, but absolutely that was there.
Hmm. Yeah, we check off the boxes, and for some, that's good, and for others, it's wait, I've checked off all the boxes, and why do I not feel fulfilled? Why do I feel like there is more? There's more for me, and some people say there's a couple ways we can look at life or things that happen to us, which is this happened to me and this happens for me. And I'm guessing you have a bent in one of those directions.
I do. It's a journey. I quote one of my teachers who has no idea he was my teacher. He passed away in 2013. His name was Dallas Willard. He was a philosopher, teacher, theologian, and he said one of the things he said is it's more important than what you do is who you become.
Mhm.
And so my story, I just turned 52. My 52 years is a story of becoming, and it is an active process. And so everything that has happened for my becoming, for me, not to me.
Yeah, and I imagine that is a process to go through, and well, to share with those listening who have gone through or are going through significant processes and unexpected circumstances. What was the arc of that? There's getting news, and then there is the having to process and really try to integrate the news, and then, as with many medical issues, there is like it unfolds in reality over time. From here's a name, here's what it means, and here's what you can expect, but you haven't necessarily experienced that yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to pull back for a second from the diagnosis, and happy to dive into that. There's nothing to hide there. But if I look at my journey, this arc that I'm still very much on, if I look at it, a huge starting point of the most recent, if I could say, trajectory was becoming an entrepreneur. It actually wasn't the diagnosis. So I was diagnosed in 2006. And because of the nature of the disease, it's very slow progressing. My life initially didn't really change a whole lot. And then I transitioned to my own business as a leadership advisor, a leadership coach, began that journey in 2011, and realized this new world that I was in, where things were no longer just handed to me, which often in a corporate environment is here's your work, do it, clock in, clock out. And so I was dealing with a tremendous amount of stress, and can I do this? Can I make it work? Can I provide? And so that, coupled then also, the diagnosis and the progression was happening there during that same time period was really a stage where I was being called forward to step into a, a way of thinking, a way of being, that was brand new. I had never experienced that type of those type of emotions, those type of the feelings, the thoughts uh, before that time. And so the last 14 years have been the most recently that I could point to the stage of the cart just kept going faster and faster and faster on the roller coaster.
And you kept going faster with it?
I had no choice.
Right.
I chose to not get off the ride.
Okay.
You can choose to get off the ride.
Right.
It does stop when it comes into the entry gate. One can choose to get off the ride, but you're absolutely right. I chose to stay in the car.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'm wondering, as someone who's in a very similar space, and someone who has been an entrepreneur for a long time, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, and you got into advising and consulting before you were truly facing the challenge that fuels everything you do. One of your major themes about resilience and your understanding of which you so eloquently talk about in your TEDx talk, for everyone listening, something that you need to see. Resilience is a choice, and there is what you thought resilience was, and there's what you have since learned it really is.
Yeah, I would say in those early years, as I was making sense of the challenges around my mobility, making sense around the new reality of entrepreneurship, I was still very much in the mindset of I have to look strong. I would say I was in my former understanding of what resilience is and was. Maybe the more common or typical version. And so I think that was part of the stress and the anxiety that I experienced in those early years is how do I make this work? How do I look good doing it? Not in an ego thumb in the lapel sort of way, but how do I look good to the world? Like he's got it all together. He's got it figured out. And so that was very much part of those early years, 2012 through 2014, 15, 16, that early phase of this was how do I look good? How do I look resilient and be strong as people are expecting me to be? So that was early on how I viewed resilience. And it took 19,000 foot mountain in Africa to help me realize that that's not actually what resilience is. Mm-hmm. It's about showing up every day. It's about choosing gratitude and choosing to stay in the moment, as we just used the metaphor of the roller coaster, choosing to stay in the car, even though we feel like we're going to lose our cookies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like things work until they don't. Right. And most of us, I would say, even like those who are considered the seekers, it's still hard to change without an experience or a pressure point or something breaking away or breaking something different that forces us to have to look at something differently. And it's right. It's interesting to think about what I can only imagine that you have gone through with your condition and the changes in your life as a result. But it was Mount Kilimanjaro, it was that, well after you've been in the
Mhm.
space and have had all your life experiences, that is what taught you that no, 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 I haven't been looking at this the right way. And by the way, the way you're looking at this is the way like we're taught to look at it most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is quite extraordinary. I I say often when people ask, "Well, why Kilimanjaro? Why a mountain?" and this kind of this goes to this statement: "It wasn't happening to me; it was happening for me." It Kilimanjaro became inevitable, not because I went and chased it, not because I went and found it, and I had some dream of doing it one day. It came to me, and I'm a person of deep faith, and so for me, God brought Kilimanjaro into into my journey for a very specific purpose, and it points to what I said before about my becoming,
Yeah.
who I who I am, and who I am becoming as a person.
Well, when you said the words, interesting. You said the words when you thought when you were riding the original roller coaster of entrepreneurship. Can I do this? Right.
Yes.
And those are the same words at Kibo Hut, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Where you are looking. Well, that was before the first peak, right? That's as you were going to peak for the first time.
Yeah. So for the audience that I'm assuming hasn't looked at the TED Talk yet, so we after 3 days of climbing, we got to Summit Base Camp, and that's called Kibo Hut, as you said, Dan. And so we were at the doorstep of what we really had no idea what it was going to be. We knew it was going to be hard. We knew we were going to be facing 17, 18, 19,000 feet of altitude. And I laid there in my bunk the night before and I wondered, could I do it? Am I going to be able to do this? Is my body going to be able to handle these dramatic changes? And really question and as you I if I'm honest, I hadn't made the connection, but you pointed to I was asking in 2011, 2012, 2013, those early days of entrepreneurship, can I do this? Do I have what it takes? Can I make this work? Can I look strong? Um, so interesting. You point to the you point to those two periods of time. But yeah, I was there and I was wondering, am I going to be able to make this look good? Am I going to be able to come through for the people who had invested in us, donors, supporters, school age kids who had sent me on this journey with a school flag to hold at the top of the summit, and was I going to be able to come through for them?
Yeah, the presentation, right? The sort of the similar thing. Like, how do I look? How are people going to see me? I'm supposed to show up this way, and talk about added pressure. Like this is your this is your adventure you created, brought everyone together. Now a nonprofit around this whole thing, right? So this is like you're the poster, right? Like this is, and then the pressure that goes with performance.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find is that performing, we're not being ourselves when we're performing.
Mm-hmm.
And we put all these expectations on ourselves when we have to perform a certain way. But what you found on that mountain, and like what a place to find it, where I haven't done this, I've heard other similar stories about how real and raw everything gets, and how the truths just present themselves, that there's no pretense.
Yeah.
It's just being you. Like you had to rely on your inner core.
Yeah. And also, I had to learn even more how to rely on others.
Mm,
And I think it's a both and, relying and being as true to myself as I could be, being honest with myself, as honest as I could be, and trusting others. And the expression "it takes a village." It took literally a village for me to climb that mountain.
Yeah.
Over 120 people, 32 from my US based team that I recruited to support me, and then over 100 Tanzanian guides and porters um, were needed, and I'd say even more necessary for that to happen. And so there's a humbling that happens in the face of that, knowing that I can't do this
Yeah.
on my own.
That's incredible. Um, I saw a few pictures, and I saw the pictures with the core team, and that seemed like a substantial team. This is tenfold, or more than tenfold what you're describing. Um, well, and talk about leadership, right? Bringing all of these people together, not to mention the donors, the funders, the organizers, and to have all of this buy-in for a vision and a cause. What type of How did you step into that role? Or not only how did you step into that role, how were you in that role? Like, what was your was that an intentional, did you have like an intentional way of being, and or were you just being led?
Well, early on, so the idea was birthed in the summer of 23. And I would say the mission really started January 1st of 24. I was in my glory, if I'm honest, to have such a big mission that I was leading, I was responsible for. And so the organization, we had a fantastic guide company in Tanzania, so they handled all of the on the ground stuff. But outside of those details, everything was on me. I mean, I delegated, I had other teammates. It was a group experience, but and so it felt good to lead something of that scale. I hadn't done that in a while. I used to lead global projects in my past life vocationally. And so to have such an initiative to lead, and you pointed to founding the nonprofit. We raised over $125,000 to fund the climb and other ancillary activities. So it was amazing. And once we got on the mountain, while I still was the center point in many ways and still the leader of the climb, it really was to take a different role once we got to the mountain. And so that's hard. That's hard. While there was no doubt, there's no question I needed everyone else to do their jobs and move me up the mountain, support me to get up the mountain. That also is an interesting shift from a place of where everything is relying on you to move the parts, to put people in the right place, and all do all those elements to then be in a place to be carried. In literally, Dan, to be carried at certain points.
Hmm.
It's just it was both ends of the spectrum, and so that tested me as well.
And it speaks to another way of looking at resilience and another way of looking at showing up, which is, not one again on being locked into a particular role or a particular idea about how you need to look and how you need to be perceived, but it's like an alignment. I don't know, help me with the words, right? It's alignment of like you were being who you needed to be is what it sounds like by reading the situation as
Mhm.
a leader, um, knowing there are many ways to lead and to step aside to allow others to step up
Mhm.
and lead as well.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting, I've talked to team members um, many times over the last 8, 9 months since we climbed, and their view of me as leader never changed. But my view of myself as leader changed.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting how the the narrative, or what I call often the tape that runs in our head that no one else is hearing, no one else is seeing or thinking. For us as leaders, we have this tape of what it should be, what we should look like, how we should be acting or performing. Um, yeah, the inner game that happens not just for leaders but for all humans, because we all face the reel that runs in the background, despite the fact that probably almost no one outside our heads is actually thinking that. That is a that's an that's a challenge that I'm grateful I'm learning to silence. I'm learning to address it in a new way, but it is absolutely there for leaders, but for everyone who's walking this planet.
Yeah, you just made me think of parents, right? This the same I don't know, challenges we face when we're thought that we are supposed to show that we are strong and we always have everything under control and know all the answers. Um, and then at times may find that the best way to be real is to be the exact opposite based on the situation, the age of your child, the developmental age, which is to be completely vulnerable and yet still be the parent. You're still the parent. You're still in charge. You're still, I mean, in a sense, you're still the leader by doing the opposite of what you might have been raised to think you needed to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think about the book by Patrick Lencioni, one of my favorites, and probably least talked about of all of his fables, called Naked. Um, it's not Naked Leadership. Um, the name's now escaping me. We can look it up later
We'll
and put it
find
in
it.
the show notes.
Yeah.
But it's a fable about a consulting firm in your neck of the woods in the Bay Area that has wild success because they show up to their clients and to the world vulnerable, not having all the answers, asking lots of questions, saying that they screwed up. Even Lencioni's other work, the famous one, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, talks about learning vulnerability based trust and learning to say, I got it wrong, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. So
Yeah.
those two books go together really well. But I think you're pointing to that is we have this perception. I lived with the perception that vulnerability is a bad thing.
Hmm.
But as I've matured, as I've had the experience that I've experienced, to learn that there's so much power in authenticity, vulnerability, um, and to still show up as leader, whether it be parent, CEO, consultant, whatever it is, mountain expedition leader, but that there's real power in being vulnerable.
Hmm. Yeah, and being real. And gosh, we're sort of taught that can be a sign of weakness and reduce credibility. And That's so fascinating because the older we get and the more work we tend to do, and it's a lot of work on, well, at least in my experience, fear, self-doubt, um, imposter stuff. It's like it's realizing the more and more we have the courage to be ourselves, to uncover who that even is, like the more grounded and impactful that our presence becomes by embodying that rather than playing a part and
Yeah.
playing out of fear of being found out.
Or the fear of looking weak.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. So we come off the mountain, and there's a gate. There's a literally a doorway that you walk through to officially come off the mountain. And so throughout our training, I have a tradition that every time I finish a course or a race, a Spartan race, with the help of two team members, I cross the finish line on my feet.
Mm.
And it is not strong. To watch me walk, it's almost looks painful. It's not, but it doesn't look strong. So that's number one. So we get to the end of the climb, and I'm like, guys, I want to walk through the gate like I do and have done for all of our races. And this is being filmed for a documentary that's going to come out later this year. But so I begin to walk through, and I'm weeping. Dan, I'm weeping with gratitude, weeping with so many emotions, and I drop my head to hide my face so that you can't see my tears. And one of my team members, his name is Alex, very, very good friend of mine, he goes, "Put your head up. Put your head up." And he probably said it 3 or 4 times because I kept trying to lower my head and hide my eyes that I was from crying. But it's just for me, and it was at the end of it, the feedback that I got was so powerful, and I didn't do it for the feedback, but the feedback came nonetheless of visibly showing my emotion, visibly in weakness, crossing the finish line, physical weakness, crossing the finish line, only possible by the aid of others, is it made a powerful impact.
Mm.
And so it didn't change the fact, like we said before, that I was the leader of the climb, and everyone was there because of me. But it just, as we were talking about vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
So many times we hide it.
Mm-hmm.
We hide a sign of weakness. We hide an emotion that wells up in our eyes. And so one thing I've learned through this process is don't hide.
Mm.
Don't hide, because at the end of the day, people are going to respond to the authenticity.
Yeah. Don't hide. All right, you just came up with the theme for your next TEDx talk right there, man. Don't hide. And when I imagine the scene, which I'm excited to hear, I will get to watch someday soon, in the documentary. When I'm imagining you being supported in walking across that line, tears head down, tears head up, like the word that came to me is triumph and triumphant. And I think that's how we have to keep mixing things up with people, is like what we think is triumph and what we think is courage and what we think it's often the exact opposite of what that really is. And at its core, what you are saying, what we are talking about is having the courage to just be how we are in that moment. Like just be as we are,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
is it's hard.
Yeah, and I'm a dad of two daughters, and who are coming of age, young women, and wanting to. The world is so pressurized to put a good face on everything,
Yep.
and we've tried to protect them in how we, you know, if they're on social media or not. But regardless of that, um, to try to lay into others. And the only way I can do it, the best way I can do it, not the only way, but the best way is to model it, to live a life that is an example of that type of leadership.
There it is. Right. Right. Um, yeah, this idea of protecting our kids, isn't it? Um, I have two daughters who are young women and a son, and I can share that experience as well of
Mm.
what we can control and what we can't control, which I think also goes back to our topic of resilience is really trying to figure out what the difference is and spend our time on what we can do. And what you're talking about, what you can do is have a large degree of influence on how you show up in the world for them. And gosh, there's so much that is out of our control.
Yeah, and I think, for me as a dad and a husband, my priority has become to go after their hearts, to delight in their hearts. Doesn't mean I am always the good guy. Sometimes that means being the guy with making the hard decision and saying no. But in everything, I want to show up with strength, not strength as the world defines it, but show up with strength and go after their hearts.
Hmm.
And I think while it will look different for a leader in industry or in organizational life, I think for all of us, and I tried to do this with the Kilimanjaro team, is to go after their hearts, those that you want to have an impact on, those that you want to influence. And I think what happens, and what I've learned for myself and with clients and with others, is it creates this type of inner authority that is counter to any type of power or any type of force, going after people's hearts, serving them well, serving their needs. It creates a measure of inner authority that can't be found in many places.
Inner authority. That's yes, because we're taught and programmed to look outside of ourselves. I mean, far before social media, it's the same thing. Whether it was, looking at others, what is other people wearing, what teams are others on, what are other people living, what are they driving, what are they watching, and then we get all those commercials and all of that stuff, and then social media just takes it to the nth degree. It's all looking outside versus inside, inner authority.
Mhm.
Did you find that? Like, where did you? I mean, you found, I think, a big degree of that on the mountain, but I also have to imagine you started to find it before.
Yeah, and it's to me, inner authority is created in the minds and hearts of those that you're called to lead by your character, by the leader's character. It's about how we show up. I try to follow a model of servant leadership that begins with this notion that it's not about me. It's not about me, and that was, and in some ways that's hard on the mountain because we were there because of me. But I try to wake up every morning, and when I put my feet on the floor, to say, it's not about me.
Hmm.
It's not about me. One of one of my enduring memories on the mountain was we had climbed for nearly 12 hours to get to the first summit ridge, and it was hard. And it was hard. And some of my team members who had gone ahead and they had summited before us, they were waiting there at the ridge. And as I crested the ridge, and it was celebration, it was beautiful for us, the small group that was together that did that. My first question to the team members who were there was, "Did you summit? Did you summit?" And I remember we had a young man. He's 23 years old. He was there with his dad and his brother. They have become good friends of mine. And his name's Daniel. I says, "Daniel, did you summit with your dad and your brother?" And he said, "Yes." And we wept. And I'll never forget that moment with Daniel. And so that, I think that, I don't want this to sound like a pat on my back, but I want to share that with the audience, of this mindset that there's nothing wrong with your own accomplishment. There's nothing wrong with your own achievement and success. Those can be beautiful things. But I think for us as leaders, how we build that inner authority with those we're called to lead is by creating that inner authority in the minds and hearts of those that we're leading. And say, "It's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about me."
You had to make some hard decisions. And in your talk about resilience, in it with vulnerability and how one leads, I was curious about the third peak, because you guys peaked 2 of the 3, and you alluded to having to dig deep to make a decision. Now you're leading these people all this way, all this training, all of this, right, with these expectations, and you had to make a difficult decision that came from that inner wisdom and that inner guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind sharing?
Yeah, so we got to, as you pointed to, the second summit point. First one is called Gilman. Second one is called Stella Point. We got just a little bit ways past that, and one of my team members came up to me because the sun was going down, and food and water was dwindling, and we had gotten a warning that says when it gets dark, it gets dangerous. So they were looking to me to make a call. And my team member said, "Dig deep, check your heart. What if you want to go on, we're with you, but what should we do here?" And I paused probably 5 seconds for it. I mean, not long. And I made the decision in that moment, 500 yards away from Uhuru Peak, the final summit, that we would turn around, utilize as much of the sunlight as we still had to get along the crater ridge and begin our descent. And so we did not reach that final summit. And I felt really clear in the moment, and it was really hard, Dan, really hard. I've been watching footage as we've been editing for the film and seeing some of the reaction at that turnaround point by some of my team. And I weep when I see them, how they hurt. The fact that we didn't get all the way. It hurts me. But I know in the moment, I made the best decision I could. And when I reflect on, well, why did I do that? What was behind that? The only word that I come up with is love. Love. Not love as a nice feeling, not love as being kind or nice. Love as a deep commitment to do, to the best of my ability, what's best for others, even when it costs us something.
Mm-hmm.
And that decision came at a cost. And so Was it the perfect decision? I'm not sure, but it was the right decision in that moment, and it was born out of love.
Yeah. Yeah. And a different decision could have come with greater cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think to make a decision out of love versus ego in a situation such as that is really difficult. And this would, like, I would say in a normal in a this isn't a typical situation or a normal situation, which would make this even a more difficult decision to go with your heart than from ego.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't based on pride. It wasn't based on fear. It was based on love.
Hmm.
And if all things had been ideal and different circumstances, of course we summit. Of course.
Hmm.
If it had been an hour, just an hour earlier, we summit.
Yeah.
But that's not the
Yeah.
hand that we've been given.
So, what did the mountain give you that you would like to leave with everyone listening and watching?
Oh, so much, Dan. So much. I think it was what it gave me was just this deeper sense of community and the power of community, the, the deeper sense of who I who I am, of who I am, because the mountain revealed some things that I'm not that proud of, then it revealed some things that I am proud of. But I think the thing that I want to know to people is I, the insights that I've had didn't come on the mountain. The insights that have developed and have come in the last 8 months off the mountain. And so my encouragement to everyone is whatever you live through, whatever your mountain is, small or great, whatever it is create space and slow down after you're off that mountain to check what it has for you to learn.
Mm.
Because it was a whirlwind, as anyone's mountain will be, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's a hard financial challenge, whether it's a struggle with your kids, on and on, whatever it is, it's a roller coaster. And you gain and you learn and stuff happens, but it's only until after the mountain when you can slow down and think and learn. That has been such a gift, that my life has is at such a pace that I'm able to really sit with the mountain over and over again. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that I'm taking away from the whole experience.
The continued process of becoming.
Yes.
Jeff,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience and lessons, a documentary to come to bring this even more to life in experiential form. Tell everyone where they can learn about my impossible, your coaching, your speaking, and everything
Yeah.
you're up to.
So my impossible is my impossible, impossible.org. Um, and there's who we are, what we're about. There's a few videos there that they can see. Um, the TED Talk. I think the TED Talk video is there, but maybe we could pop that in the show
Oh, yeah.
notes.
Easy to find. Well, we'll lead everyone to it.
Make sure that that's there. And then my coaching and speaking is brilliancewithincoaching.com.
There's a theme. There's a theme that runs through it all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
Yeah, really appreciated this conversation. Inspiring.
Thank you.
Jeff challenges us to live and lead with our heart. Here are 5 key takeaways from this conversation. Number 1, pressure doesn't create character, it reveals it. The moments that test us most often show us who we already are beneath the performance. Number 2, true resilience isn't about looking strong, it's about staying present, choosing gratitude, and continuing forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Number 3, leadership requires both courage and surrender. Sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is trust others enough to let them carry part of the load. Number 4, the best decisions are often made from love, not ego. Choosing what's right for others, even at a personal cost, is one of leadership's highest callings. And number 5, the greatest lessons often come after the mountain. Growth happens when we slow down, reflect, and allow our experiences to teach us what they were really meant to reveal. Lots of lessons in this conversation. I know many of you are thinking about your mountain or mountains. I know I am. And they are there to teach us. They're there to expand us, there to humble us, and ultimately to help us go beyond who we were before climbing them. We are interested in what you think about this episode, so please feel free to leave us a comment at Dr. Dan Peters on Instagram or reply to any of our social posts. Please share this episode to anyone and everyone who you are thinking about right now and who you think will benefit. Thank you for being a part of our amazing community, your 5-star reviews, and subscribing. It really does make a difference. And as always, we have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Amber Miller. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.